Welcome to this week's episode of the Financial Game Plan, the show that's dedicated to helping you have a solid plan in place for your retirement. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley, and I am joined today by Cody Rose Kelley. She is a financial advisor with SMRS Financial Advisory. Cody, my friend, I am so excited to have this time with you. How are you?
Kristin, thanks so much for having me back. It's always so fun to be here with you.
Well, and we love your dad, Skip. Of course, he is the president and founder of SMRS, but my gosh, we have such a great friendship, and I'm excited that it's just kind of a girl chat today, right?
Hey, we got a good topic to talk about. Very important stuff.
We do, for sure. So today's show is all about the important birthday of turning 65. The reality is that over 10,000 Americans are turning 65 every single day, and with that big birthday comes a very important word, which is Medicare. And we were joking before, you know, it might not seem like the most thrilling subject, but our job here today, we have called the show Medicare Made Easy, because the reality is there's several important decisions and there's a lot to know. And Cody, you are a Medicare expert. This is what you do, is you help walk folks through the alphabet soup that is Medicare.
That's exactly what I call it, actually. So yeah, it can be very confusing, especially for people who are nearing 65. They get a lot of marketing in the mail, they get phone calls, they see the advertisements on TV, and a lot of it is scare tactics, like get your Medicare now before you get penalized and fined.
Right.
But there's a lot to unpack here, and we're here to make it easy.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited. And one of the things that makes you unique and makes your company unique, and not all financial firms out there have this, is that you are actually a Medicare specialist, a Medicare expert. And so you're able to, as part of that comprehensive, holistic financial planning process, able to walk your clients through this and understand how these important decisions surrounding their Medicare affects all the other aspects of their financial lives.
Absolutely. Health and wealth go hand in hand, and that's why we look at the entire portfolio, including where your Medicare costs are going to be and what's the best plan for you. So I'm licensed and appointed, and I'm here to help our clients do whatever they need to do for Medicare.
And because you are independent and you're a fiduciary, which means you have that legal obligation to always serve the client's best interests, the other important distinction is you don't work for any one insurance company. You have the world as your oyster. You're able to look at all the options around Medicare and then help a client decide what's the best course of action for them.
Precisely that. It's a very important distinction, because we don't pick out plans for our clients. What I do is educate our clients, show them the best options, and they decide, because we don't make those decisions for people. We're not steering them towards any one insurance company, and that's a really important distinction.
Absolutely. Well, I would love to start off by just asking you, what are some of the most common questions or concerns that people are coming to you with regarding Medicare?
I'd say that the most common concern that I have with our clients is that they're so confused about A, B, C, and D, and that's why we talk about that alphabet soup.
Right.
But it gets more confusing because then a lot of the plans themselves are named after the alphabet. You get Plan G and Plan H, and it just goes down the line and it gets very confusing. But one of the biggest questions and concerns I get is, well, I'm still working, but I need to start my Medicare, and it's going to be an added cost because I'm paying for my insurance over here, and now I have to start this. And really the truth is that if you're still working and you have medical coverage through your employer called creditable coverage, then you don't need to start any sort of Medicare plan. You can turn on your Part A if you'd like, but as far as Part B goes, or deciding between Medicare Advantage or a Medigap or Medisupplement plan, you don't need to go that far.
My gosh, there's just so much to know. I'm so glad that you're an expert in this, because my head spins. Even though I'm familiar with this stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, it gets very overwhelming for people.
Absolutely, and people are so concerned that if they don't get their Medicare sorted out by age 65, that they're going to be paying those penalties. But if you have that creditable coverage, there's not much we need to do until you plan to retire.
Got it. So what are some of the things that, if someone calls you and they say, okay, Cody, I'm approaching this big birthday of 65, how do you kind of start mapping out this plan for someone to help them navigate the complexities of Medicare?
Well, first of all, it's important to know about like the 7-month window. So if you're nearing 65, you actually have 3 months before your birthday month, then your entire birthday month, and 3 months after. So, and if you are retired and you're nearing that birthday, it's important to give us a call right then and there. Like, it's 3 months before your birthday, give us a call, let's get this sorted out, because you have that window to do your enrollment and find the best plan for you. And the other thing is that sometimes a client thinks that they'll be on the same healthcare plan as their significant other, and that's not always the case. So we can look at these plans specialized for each client and get them on the right track.
Now, what typically happens? Do people typically call because they need help with Medicare, and then you kind of open their eyes to this whole concept of comprehensive, holistic financial planning, or do people call because they want help with their financial planning and then Medicare is an added benefit, or is it a mix of both?
We definitely do both, but I would say that most of our Medicare clients are already our financial clients, and it's just another service under one roof that we can help them with. That's pretty fantastic. They know us, they're comfortable with us, they trust us, and so I can help them with that and to figure out that puzzle and get rid of all that confusion when it comes to the Medicare world. But we're also open to helping anybody. We get tons of referrals to other people that are nearing the age and need help with Medicare.
Absolutely. Well, and I know you offer this Retirement Readiness Review, and that's a special offer for TV viewers. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that and how the Medicare piece can fit in?
Yeah, so like I said before, with health and wealth, they go hand in hand. If you haven't figured out the health portion of your portfolio, it can very much impact the wealth portion of your portfolio. So we do the Retirement Readiness Review, and we're happy to look at any client's portfolio in a holistic manner to see where they're at, what milestones they're about to hit, and to figure out the best plan moving forward.
Wonderful. Cody, it's so great to be with you, and I know we have so much more to get into on today's show, but we are going to take a quick commercial break, and this is an excellent opportunity for you to pick up the phone and call so that you can get connected and have your own complimentary retirement readiness review. That number to call is on the bottom of your screen, 844-823-6398. You're also welcome to take out your smartphone. Simply scan that QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and you'll be able to connected to come in and have your complimentary appointment that way as well. When we come back, I'm going to be asking Cody to dive more deeply into the associated costs with Medicare, how it can affect your other aspects of your financial plan. So don't go anywhere. We have more right after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Well, welcome back to the Financial Game Plan. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley, and I'm joined by Cody Kelley. She is a financial advisor and Medicare expert with SMRS Financial Advisory. We are talking today about Medicare Made Easy. And Cody, we were talking just during the commercial break. There is so much to know, and we're going to really unpack this in this segment. So, I mean, this is a lofty question, but how does Medicare work?
So, that is a very lofty question. We could talk about this topic all day, but we do have a lot of confusion with people that are nearing 65 about how Medicare works. Like, what do I do? Who do I talk to? And most people think that they just need to call Medicare. The truth is, where you start with the conversation is actually with Social Security. So that's a good place to start, or even calling our office, talking to me or any other Medicare expert that could help you with the puzzle. But Medicare works in a facet to get you covered through the government for your medical coverage. So once you're retired and you don't have medical insurance through your employer any longer, you can get on the government program, get your red, white, and blue card, your Medicare card from mailed to you, and that'll be your Part A and B. And then the big distinction that everybody needs to make at 65 is whether they want to go the Medicare Advantage route, which is called Part C,
okay,
or if they want to do a Medigap, also referred to as Medicare Supplement, which is underneath your A and B. And then you also get the Part D. And Part D is best remembered as your drug coverage. So Part D, D for drug. So there's that alphabet soup again.
Yes.
So we try to make it as easy as possible when it comes to explaining to our clients how it all works. We break it down. And we can even do a little assessment on where people are at, what kind of coverage they're looking for, and how to move forward with that.
So what are some of the questions that you ask folks to help them navigate which plans they should be signing up for, or which decisions they should make with that alphabet soup, if you will?
Absolutely. So we're looking at the difference between HMO and PPO. So if someone has specific doctors that they're looking at, it's important to know that, and if they are really looking to get away from needing referrals for the different specialists, it's also an important question. If they travel a lot, especially internationally, that's an important question, and the list goes on. So we have an entire assessment that we go through with our clients, and that helps us let them figure out if they should be going the Medicare Advantage or the Medicare Supplement route. Now, your Medicare Advantage is typically less expensive per month to pay out of pocket, but it covers less. So for some clients, they're like, I don't have a lot of health concerns. I barely go to the doctor. I'm fine. So they'd rather pay out of pocket on a monthly basis less. But for a lot of our clients, they really want to make sure they're covered appropriately, especially moving forward with age. And that's where Medicare supplements are very helpful.
Absolutely. So what are some of the misconceptions? I know some folks think Medicare covers all things, and it doesn't. So how do people know, and how do you walk them through what the different parts cover versus what they don't?
For sure. So A and B, your original Medicare, cover your hospital and your Medicare, your medical coverage. So the difference between having a hospital visit or visiting a doctor.
Right.
And then beyond that, that's where your Medicare supplements or Medigap would come in to cover the rest of your deductibles beyond. So it is an important question to figure out where you're at with your medical needs. We also, one of the first things we do is we get a list of prescriptions. Now, some of my clients have nothing on their list of prescriptions, and some have something that feels like a mile long, a scroll that's going to roll down the carpet. So it is very important to look at everybody individually, and like we mentioned before, a partner and their spouse might have different Medicare plans because of their needs.
Right. And that just proves there's no cookie cutter approach. It's not that simple. You really have to look at your own individual situation to figure out the best course of action with your Medicare. And you mentioned if someone's still working and they still have that credible coverage, then they don't need to enroll. Do you ever have people who come to you, though, and they want to retire before age 65? And if so, how do you help them fill in that space when maybe they've lost that credible coverage, but they're not quite eligible for Medicare yet?
Well, Kristin, that's exactly why we look at everyone's portfolio as a whole in that holistic sense, because sometimes it makes no sense, given their path when it comes to retirement, to retire early. Sometimes it makes sense to just keep that coverage until 65. And a lot of clients can sometimes work part-time and still have that medical benefit. And it's worthwhile to keep them a little bit busy, have a little bit of leeway to ease into retirement, and keep that medical coverage in order to stay away from either COBRA to get you to 65 to that gap, or going into the individual marketplace and fulfilling that, because it can be quite expensive.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you know the right questions to ask someone to really figure out what the best course of action would be.
For sure.
Now, I know we talk about acronyms on this show, and there's one that's a mouthful. We actually mentioned it in our show last week. That is the acronym IRMAA that comes into play, and it can really knock folks off course with their Medicare. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about what IRMAA is and what people need to know about it.
So IRMAA is very important. IRMAA. So that's income related monthly adjusted amount. So it's important to know that your costs for Medicare are going to be determined on your income. So there's a base rate, and if you make more than that, then you'll have an IRMAA charge tacked on to your Medicare costs. And these IRMAA charges are things that we would like to avoid if possible. That's why we strategically plan for this big birthday of 65. So there's ways to do that, and it's also important to know that that look back for the IRMAA is 2 years. So we can help out clients who've had a big change in their income in the last 2 years by asking to be looked at a certain tax year rather than this tax year. Can you look at last tax year instead of this tax year? And it can really help out the costs associated with Medicare.
Yeah, because I've heard some horror stories where folks all of a sudden their Medicare went up. They had no idea why. They came in to their financial advisor and it was because they had sold a house, for example, and all of a sudden their income had gone up and they didn't have the understanding that that was going to directly impact their Medicare payments because they didn't have that comprehensive, holistic approach.
Absolutely, and that's why we always talk about health and wealth together. These are big implications that these tax implications and your income really affect how your medical coverage is going to work and the costs associated with them.
Absolutely. Well, gosh, I'm sure a lot of people watching today are going, I don't want to do this on my own. I need Cody's help. So if that's you and you're watching, what do you want to say to that person?
I want to say, well, I can make it a lot easier than it seems. I know a lot of people have a lot of concerns when it comes to Medicare. They feel very confused, and there's a lot of reasons to feel confused. So let me help you out, figure out where to start with you, and we'll move forward in the process and get you sorted out.
Awesome. Cody, thank you so much. We are going to take another quick commercial break, but we encourage you, pick up the phone, make this important phone call if you have questions regarding your healthcare coverage needs, Medicare, or any other aspect of your financial life. Cody and the team at SMRS Financial Advisory would love to help and serve you. All you have to do is call the number on the bottom of your screen, 844-823-6398, or you're welcome to scan that QR code. That will get you connected as well for you to come in and have your complimentary retirement readiness review. And of course, Cody will be there to help walk through the Medicare maze that can happen if you have questions regarding that as well. We have more on today's show. We'll be back right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter, the one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to the Financial Game Plan. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley, and I'm joined by Cody Kelley. She is a financial advisor and Medicare expert with SMRS Financial Advisory. And Cody, we were just talking on the commercial break. You said something really wise. You know, we've called today's show Medicare Made Easy. And this discussion can be really challenging to know how to navigate because it is so complex. So share with our viewers what you just said to me.
So sometimes it's really hard to get into the Medicare conversation in general because it's so specialized to each individual.
Yes.
So we can talk about all the different ins and outs of Medicare, and it's such a big topic, but without looking at the individual's needs moving forward, it's definitely pretty difficult to have that greater conversation without making it really confusing.
Absolutely. So we're thinking of today's show as kind of high level, right? We're kind of covering a lot of the basics and helping folks uncover, you know, what they may not know about it, because that's where you come in and you can say, hey, we just need to focus on your situation, and based on your individual pieces of your puzzle, if you will, you can help them navigate what's the best course of action for them.
Absolutely. And just like with our finances, we look at it holistically, and it's a different puzzle for each client. It's the same thing with Medicare. So knowing what your prescriptions are and getting that list to make sure that we're covered appropriately, and knowing that this client has a specific doctor that they'd like to keep, and making sure that we keep them in that network is also really important. So.
Yeah.
It's definitely a specific puzzle for each client.
Well, I want to represent some of the basics that we are talking about on today's show, because you made a really good point earlier that, there's this marketing machine that can happen when we near that big birthday of age 65, and all of a sudden everyone's wanting your attention, right? And they're using those scare tactics, like you said, to get people to hurry up and enroll. But you're saying that's not necessarily what you have to subject yourself to. So let's go back to the basics a little bit of, how do you enroll? When should you enroll? We'll just go through that.
Yeah, so first of all, as soon as you are starting to near 65, you'll notice your mailbox full of pamphlets and flyers and postcards, all sorts of mail. You'll notice that you see TV ads and they're grabbing your attention because they're going to name your age, and you have a big birthday coming up, you better listen. And you'll also see a lot of your friends at pickleball talking about Medicare. So there's a lot to talk about. You definitely, our clients and anyone turning 65 definitely get inundated with information and sometimes scare tactics of, if you don't enroll now, you will pay fines for the rest of your life. And the truth is that is applicable if you're tired and don't have credible coverage. And credible coverage, just to go over it again, is if you are working and you have health care provided by your employer, then you don't need to enroll in Medicare until you're looking at retirement. So.
Right. Yeah. So you have that 7-month window, as you said, the 3 months before you turn 65, the month you turn 65, the 3 months after. But that penalty, it can come into play for folks if they don't enroll within that 7-month window, right? If they don't have that credible coverage.
Absolutely, Kristen. And it's important to know that there's 2 different penalties that you can accrue. There is your original Medicare penalty for not enrolling at an appropriate time, but there's also your Part D. So it's really, Part D is a very important piece of the puzzle when we talk about the ABCDs. So, and D is your drug coverage. So some people are like, I don't have any prescriptions, I don't need to enroll in Part D yet, and that's not true. You need to enroll in at least a basic plan for Part D so that you don't incur that charge. And the different charges, one of your fees is an annual charge and one accrues monthly. So it's really important to know those dates, know what you're required to sign up for and when, and get it satisfied for your medical needs.
Well, I know you mentioned it really does depend on what prescriptions that you're taking, and so that there's different tiers to Part D, and so what I love is that you're able to sit down with someone and say, okay, show me what medications, what prescriptions you have, and then you can help figure out which aspect of Part D they should enroll in.
Absolutely. We actually, I have clients come in for a first meeting with an entire list of their prescription, and not just the drug name, but also the frequencies and when they get those drugs, and the dosage. So we put all of that into our Medicare machine, and it spits out coverage from different drug plan providers, and we find the best rate and the best coverage for each individual.
Now talk about once someone enrolls in Medicare and you've helped them walk through this with their big birthday, what is the ongoing process of kind of monitoring and helping with that? Because we all know that things can change, our health can change, our need for coverage can change as we get older. So talk to me a little bit about that process.
So that goes back to the big decision between Part C, which is your Medicare Advantage, and then getting a Medicare supplement to go along with your original Medicare. So for some people, it's a lot easier to not pay the bigger fees of Medicare supplements and to go with Medicare Advantage. The nice thing about Medicare Advantage is it packages everything in one. It takes your original Medicare and it adds additional coverage, and it also typically includes your Part D. So it's one small package. And it's also at a lower cost on a monthly basis. But the problem with that is that if you do use your medical coverage very often, or if you get sick and need to go to the hospital a lot more often, you get a medical implication, then you are probably going to pay out of pocket a lot more on an annual basis. The other downside to Medicare Advantage is that if you'd like to switch to a Medicare supplement down the line because you do have higher medical insurance needs, sometimes you need to do a qualification process beforehand.
And so kind of like a medical underwriting, if you will.
Yeah, it's typically just a questionnaire, and sometimes it's a little bit more in depth based on conditions that you might have. But it is another step in the process. So if you already have medical needs that you know are above and beyond basic medical coverage, it's good to consider medical supplements and pay a little bit more out of pocket on a monthly basis, but get that broader medical coverage.
Right. Gosh, so much to know. I'm so glad you're an expert in this. Now, another question, because I've heard that, a lot of people assume that Medicare is going to cover things like your dental, your vision, long-term care. So talk about that, because I think a lot of folks can get tripped up in what Medicare does and does not cover for them.
So a lot of the plans, whether it's Medicare Advantage or MedSup, do have some coverage for eye and dental, but some have none. So it's really important to look at every plan and make sure you're getting the right one for yourself, because a lot of times it'll cover, incidental. It won't cover incidental for dental, but it will cover your annual cleanings. But it's important to know for each client what's important. Do they want chiropractic coverage? Do they need vision coverage? Do they want to make sure that, comprehensive dental is all in there? So those will determine the plans that we look at and the right plans for those individuals.
And something you said earlier really perked my ears, because I haven't heard someone else talk about this. You said one of the questions that you ask folks is, are they going to be traveling a lot? And I guess I'm assuming that's because the coverage could be different if you're traveling overseas on a cruise or whatever, heaven forbid something happens to you. So tell me a little bit about that piece.
So it's really important. A lot of people, when they retire, they want to be traveling all over. They want to go visit the grandkids in a different state, or they want to be doing their big bucket list trips overseas. And it's important to know that with Medicare supplements, you have a broader coverage for that. So it's very specialized. Some people don't do any traveling, and so it's not going to be really a piece of their puzzle, but it's important to know the implications there and what you'll be charged and those deductibles that you have to fill separately.
Gosh, Cody, you're just amazing. I mean, I've always known you were amazing, but having this conversation today, I'm like, this girl knows what she's talking about, and I'm so grateful that you are able to serve people in this important way, for sure.
Yeah, well, we're here to help. So it's a lot to unpack. It's a lot of information, and it can be very confusing. So just like with our finance side, we're always looking to get that peace of mind for our clients and know that they're properly covered and they've planned properly for their finances.
For sure. Well, I know we have a little less than a minute left, but why don't you just tell the viewers one more time what they can expect when they call to take advantage of the Retirement Readiness Review?
Sure. So our clients or potential clients, if they would like to have a retirement readiness review, we sit down with them. We look at their portfolio in a holistic manner, and we make sure that we're looking at every piece of the puzzle, health and wealth.
Including Medicare, and you help make it easy.
Absolutely. Medicare made easy. That's what we're talking about today.
That's awesome. Well, Cody, thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise with us. To our viewers at home, we encourage you, pick up the phone, call that number on the bottom of your screen, 844-823-6398. We appreciate you watching. Thank you for being with us. We love you, New England. We will see you next week.